Hello and welcome to another episode of Seeing Live. I'm Colion Noir, and the over-under for the number of times I drop my mic pack on the air today is 2. Our first guest is a legend in the gun world and the military world, Larry Vickers. We've had him on before, and it's good to have him back on now today. What's going on, Larry?
Hey, not much, brother. Good to see you.
I know, man. I know. What was it? When was the last time I was? Where were we? OKC? I saw you last for a brief moment.
Yes, OKC just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Correct.
How'd that go?
Went real well. Excellent.
Awesome.
Real well.
So let's talk about but before we jump into the books, what since we last spoke on the show, what have you been up to?
Still working on the Vickers guidebooks.
Okay.
You know, we're doing the 1911 Vickers Guide reprint, and we're taking pre-orders for that right now. We've also sent off the Vickers Guide AR-15 Volume 2 to the printers.
Okay.
So it's at the printers now. Now, me and my co-author, James Rupley, we made basically a command decision that we're not going to open up pre-orders for it until we've gotten the 1911 reprints in and we're shipping
them out.
We just don't think it's cool to be taking pre-orders on 2 books.
Gotcha.
So once the 1911s are in-house and shipping, then we'll take pre-orders for Volume 2 because we're already getting people wanting to pre-order Volume 2, which is understandable. But we're tentatively looking at about mid to late May. We'll be shipping the 1911 reprints, which means we'll take the AR-15 Volume 2 Vickers Guide pre-orders at that time.
Hold on. So at this point, is it too late to order on the reprint for the 1911s?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got plenty. If you want a 1911 book, because I think you missed it.
Yes, I missed the 1911 one. I had the AR one.
Yeah, you can definitely order it, no problem at all.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can go ahead and do that because it's one of the most popular books in my house. Now, granted, it is the only coffee table book on my coffee table. But people people tend to really gravitate towards it anytime they come into my house and see it on the coffee table.
It's went far beyond what we ever imagined.
Oh yeah, no, I think it was excellent.
We're steamrolling it. We enjoy it, so we're steamrolling the future books and just continue to keep feeding the animal.
You know, the interesting thing about it is, it reads just as well as it looks. I
appreciate that. Thank you much. We tweaked the formula a little bit from the 1911 book for Volume 1, and now what you saw in the AR-15 Volume 1, that's kind of the template moving forward. We really like the blend of commentary, the pictures, just expert commentary from people other than me. So we really liked how that thing came together, and that's kind of the template moving forward.
Gotcha. Now, are there any plans to do more of the series, but like hyper focusing on specific types? Well, I guess essentially what you're doing with the 1911 and AR-15. But are you any plans to do that with respect to other platforms as well?
Yeah, good question. Mm-hmm. Yes, without a doubt, the no-brainer one is the AK.
Yeah.
Kind of spitballing it. We've kind of looking at 2019 for the AK 2-volume without a shadow of a doubt. It'll be a 2-volume set.
Okay.
And yeah, so that one for sure is going to deserve the same attention the 1911 got, and certainly the same attention the AR-15 got. Moving forward, it's going to kind of depend. What we may do is kind of clump brands together like a SIG Switzerland book, which I have a passion for Swiss-made SIG firearms.
Yeah.
And that's largely a piece of history now. So kind of a Swiss SIG book, obviously an HK book. So the focus may be more brand specific. And then when we kind of get into broad brush stuff, it'd be like battle rifles, modern service pistols, stuff like that. So yeah, where it's warranted, we will hyper-focus on a specific firearm. If not, it'll be a brand or a classification.
Gotcha. Can I volunteer to do the foreword for the HK book?
I know you're the HK guy. I know that.
I get a lot of crap for it too, man. And so, and the funny thing is that there is there's no undying loyalty for HK in terms of my connections to it. There's some things do certain things with certain people. They just.
Well, I can tell you part of it. You're a car guy, and you're a German car guy.
I am a German car guy. Yeah, absolutely.
And dude, if you like German cars, it's hard to not like HK.
Yeah, which is very, very true. So I take all the slack I get in stride, and because they do come with some of their faults. I'm willing to admit
like
those.
anything, nothing's perfect, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, speaking of faults, the 1911. No, I'm joking. you do a lot in the way of helping people build their own 1911s, correct?
Yeah, what I do, I have a couple different classes that I do every year. The 2-day 1911 operator is most popular. And we basically spend 1 day on the range learning to shoot the gun, which really boils down to, more than anything, is learning how to manipulate the thumb safety. That's the thing that gets people in trouble in a 1911. See, when I was coming up through the ranks, I cut my teeth on a 1911, then I picked up a Glock. No big deal. Most people now, they start on a Glock, then they pick a 1911, and that can cause them a lot of heartburn. And you'd think the grip safety would be a major issue, but really it's more the thumb safety. Learning how to run it, and that, when you take it off on the draw, when you take it off on the ready presentation, and that whole 9 yards. So the day on the range is really kind of learning to run the gun, and specifically learning your reloads, because the gun holds half as many bullets as most of the modern pistols, and learning to run the thumb safety. And then day 2, we spend about 3 to 4 hours in the classroom, and we detail disassemble the gun, we troubleshoot it. I give people stuff to look for. And then we put it back together, and then we go out and finish up on the range. Because I got a buddy named Jason Burton, friend of mine, great 1911 pistol smith, and he had a good line. He said, there's nothing wrong with it. You just got to remember it was designed in a different era. The gun is 100 years old now.
I think a lot of people forget that.
Exactly. And it was designed where hand fitting certain components was expected and was the norm. So it's just a different mindset. And
now,
once you kind of dial in on that you got to kind of become your own armor to a degree, and be able to diagnose problems, then you'll be okay.
Now, my question has always been, because I'm from the generation of people who you just alluded to not so long ago. I went Glock first, then 1911, and so for me, I always wondered why the 1911 chambered in the 9mm isn't as prevalent as one chambered as is it being chambered in the 45?
Well, I can tell you a couple things. Good point. Number one, it's gaining in popularity big time. Half the guns Wilson sells now are in 9mm. And dude, so that is a trend that's going in that direction. Number two, only until recently did we have reliable 9mm 1911 magazines.
So the weakness was the magazine. Okay.
Yeah, it took a while to crack that code, and what they were largely looked at as, if you ran full metal jacketed ammo in them, you were fine. As soon as you put hollow points in them, dude, you had problems.
You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. And then the other thing is, the 1911, as a general rule, works best in the full-size format. When you make them smaller, you start to rob Peter to pay Paul, and there's a price to be paid with that, too. So the bottom line, there was a few things to the formula that had to be sorted out before we could get 9mm in hollow point ammo and more compact versions sorted out.
Now, is the issue with the feeding problem with hollow points and 9mm, was that due to the smaller surface area of the bullet compared to the 45, or?
Length of the cartridge.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and because what happens when that round's going forward, it has a tendency to want to nosedive. Yeah, so that had to be sorted out. If you look at the newer Wilson 9mm magazines, they got a spacer in the back, so it pushes the cartridge a little bit forward, and it has a little dimple in the front at the top of the tube that almost acts like a miniature feed ramp.
Gotcha. So
that was the trick behind it.
Gotcha. And I think for me, some of the other questions I've always had about 1911s, because from an ergonomic standpoint, they're phenomenal. The trigger's phenomenal.
Yes.
Just the overall usage of the firearm, but, of course, withstanding the ability to run the safety consistently.
Yes.
The ergo's always phenomenal. But there's always been that thing for me about, I'm from a generation of give me more, give me more, give me more, especially when it comes to bullets. And you kind of touched on this a little bit. I've always wondered, like, on top of wondering about the 9s, was the lack of double stack 45 1911s due in part simply because people just wanted trimmer guns, or is there a mechanical issue that comes with respect to that as well, which is not very prevalent?
To be brutally honest with you, none of the manufacturers that brought a double stack 45 1911 style pistol to the market really are what you would call tier 1 manufacturers. You never had an HK, you never had an FN. It was always people that kind of, the way it generally worked out was people that said, hey, I'd like this idea. I want to make this work. And almost started as a hobby. Then they went down the path of building the guns.
Yeah.
And that isn't always the best way to go. The magazines were never really sorted out, to be brutally honest with you. The guns always had obvious flaws. If you'd have seen somebody like an HK do it, they would have run like a champ. But the closest thing to it for HK is a 45 ACP. Yeah, exactly.
The USP. Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I mean, like, as much as I love the USPs, love them to death, but like you said, what you do lose out on is you lose out on that trigger.
Yes.
And that in and of itself, I think personally, I can't think of another platform that has as good a trigger as the 1911 does.
Yeah, the 1911 is still the gold standard. Yeah. It absolutely is. It is still. Think about it. All pistols that come out are always compared to the 1911. A tuned 1911 trigger is still the gold standard, which is amazing for a gun that's over 100 years old.
Yeah.
Still the gold standard.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, everything is compared to that.
Yep. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll finish up our conversation about 1911, and then we'll also talk about your Glock, new version of Glock that you're coming out with as well.
You got it. Right. Sounds good. Cool.